Now, good evening, everyone, and thank you all for joining us for tonight's Wednesday webinar. My name is May Fanning, and I am the current president of National Parents Council Post-Primary. The purpose of the NPCPP's Wednesday webinars is to inform parents about educational and other matters which may affect you or the young people in your family who are attending second-level schools. Tonight, we welcome Annette Honan from the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment, otherwise referred to as the NCCA, as our guest presenter. NPCPP is engaged with the Department of Education and many other stakeholders in education to represent you and parents from all sectors, geographic areas and backgrounds in national discussions and consultations about education. There has never been a more important time in education as we try to make sure that we in our school communities do in fact prepare our young people for their future in a rapidly changing world. It is crucial that you and the parent body in your school have the opportunity to be informed and to have your views represented. This requires your school's Parents Association or Parents Council to be registered with NPCPP. So please do check to see that they are, and if not, please encourage engagement and registration. If you need assistance, please use our website, go to npcpp.ie. Now, NPCPP has an ongoing contact with the NCCA, the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment, to discuss what is taught in post-primary education and how achievements are best assessed. Currently, there is a national consultation process on SPHE, which includes RSE program. This is open until mid-October. Our webinar this evening brings to you information on this subject and an opportunity to answer any questions you may have to assist you to participate in the consultation process. So please use the chat facility to post any queries you may have as we progress through the session. Any queries that we don't get to this evening will be followed up on promptly afterwards. Now, tonight's session is heavily oversubscribed. There is clearly a lot of interest in the topic. So the webinar is being recorded and will be replayed for those unable to attend this evening. National Parents Council Post-Primary has been working with Annette Honan, who is Education Officer at the NCCA, for some time now, and we're delighted that Annette can join us this evening to talk us through discussions and current consultation on the SPHE and RSE curriculum. So without further ado, and looking forward to an engaging session, I now pass you over to Annette. Thank you, Annette.
Thank you, May, and good evening, everyone. It's really great to be here, to know that there's such a big crowd involved in this event tonight. First, a sincere word of thanks to May and to her colleagues in the National Parents Council for organising it, because within the NCCA, we are genuinely really interested in engaging with parents, not simply to inform you about what's happening in relation to education, which is important, but to ensure that you also have a voice, because we know that you not only are interested in knowing what's happening, but you have a right to have a say in what's happening too. Wonderful to see so many interested tonight. So the purpose of tonight's event is to share information about developments in this important area of the curriculum, social, personal and health education, to give you an opportunity, and I promise I won't talk too long, to take questions and comments, and you can use the chat function on that to do that in about 15 minutes. And then to signpost you as to where you can go to engage in the consultation that's open at the moment. And I'll mention other consultations that might be of interest too. So you'll probably be aware that social personal health education was introduced, the turn of the century, so nearly 25 years ago now, across primary and post-primary. We're often asked, is it the same curriculum for all schools and for all students? And the answer is yes. All schools and students across the country will teach and do teach the same curriculum, but teachers and schools have freedom to choose the resources then that are appropriate to their own particular classroom contexts and children, whether that be textbooks or other resources. And they'll also always be sensitive to choosing resources that are suited to the age and stage and development of the children in front of them. The other important, I think, thing to acknowledge is that under the Education Act, parents are entitled to withdraw their children from any aspect of the school curriculum that contravenes their conscience. And that applies not just to SPHE, but indeed to any subject area, from science to maths to history and so on. So staying with the context, another important matter to mention is the review of relationships and sexuality education. And that was initiated at the request of the Minister for Education back in 2018. And at that time, the NCCA was asked to conduct a comprehensive review of teaching RSE across primary and post-primary schools. And we actually engaged with thousands of teachers, parents, and students and others at that time. A really strong sense that came through from all of that was the sense that currently relationships and sexuality education is not meeting the real world needs of children and young people. And in general, both parents and students alike, I think the most common message we heard was that they felt that the experience could be summed up as too little and too late. So that led us to a number of recommendations, and one was the need to develop a more up-to-date, comprehensive and inclusive curriculum across all levels, from primary right up to upper secondary. And the review also highlighted the need for enhanced supports for teachers and parents. Teachers clearly need a lot of upskilling and support and training in order to be confident and competent in dealing with all the topics that can come up in this area of the curriculum. And equally, parents need to be engaged too, to be able to work in partnership and have a role to play in this important area. So they equally need support and resources. On this slide then, there are just some sample comments that came from students, and you can have a look at them there. Equally, if you look to the report, you might be interested in seeing what were there's a section on parents and what they had to say, a section on teachers, school leaders. But I just pulled these out because in a way, there's a common thread here, and it was quite typical. You know, this expression of dissatisfaction with what currently is available to young people by way of education in this area. And then when we probed them a little further and we asked them, well, what are the kinds of topics that you feel need to be addressed that currently either aren't being addressed or aren't being done in a way or another that's deep enough or pitched in a way that's at the right level for your needs? They said things like, we want to learn how to create and maintain healthy relationships. It's not an amazing thing for young people to be able to say, but across every school, that was a very strong message. We want to know how to build healthy self-image, healthy self-esteem. I'm very conscious, young people are, of all the different things that are undermining their self-image and self-esteem and confidence. They want to know how to manage their online world. They want to know how to deal with online bullying. They asked to know about consent, pornography, sexual discrimination and gender-based violence and harassment came up. And they also said they wanted to learn more about sexual orientations and LGBTQ matters. So you're probably already getting a sense of the important role that consultations play in all of our work. But in addition to talking to children and young people and to their parents and teachers, and indeed to other experts who are working with adolescents and young people, the curriculum development work is also very much informed by research. And I've just included on this slide a sample of some of the research, because these reports taken together provide a really powerful narrative of what's happening in the lives of young people growing up in Ireland today. Now, I hasten to say I'm not going to talk about all of these, and you might be interested in having a look at them yourselves as parents. It's fascinating to look and see what young people are actually saying and what's happening in their lives. The My World survey is one of the biggest surveys involving over 19,000 young people and addresses all kinds of matters related to their mental health and emotional well-being. It's from everything from the amount of sleep young people are getting, and I know as parents you're obviously thinking, well, I know that's not enough. Their use of alcohol, drugs, pornography, their levels of stress and anxiety, And what are the coping mechanisms that young people are using to deal with and to support their emotional well-being? Who are they turning to in times of stress? All of those kinds of questions are there. When we look at the health behaviour of school-aged children report that is done, and this is a 4-yearly report done right across Europe, and Ireland is a participant in it, and that deals with behaviour and lives of young people from 10 to 17. Again, really rich data there that gives us a unique insight into what's happening in young people's lives. And then with the Growing Up in Ireland report, of course, which is a huge longitudinal study that the ESRI have been doing. And what's really interesting about that and useful is you can look at the report on the age of 13-year-olds, when young people were interviewed then, and then those same young people interviewed at 17 and 18. So it's almost like a window into secondary school where you have the first year cohort and then you have the Leaving Cert students. And just to give you one little snippet out of that, that some of that data then has been extracted into other reports, such as this talking about sex and sexual behaviour of young people, because that draws on the data from the 17 and 18-year-old research. And within that, for example, those students, 17, 18, Leaving Cert students, were asked whether they had engaged in various types of sexual activity, ranging from holding hands to sexual intercourse. And overall, 1/3 of this cohort reported that they had had sexual intercourse. And the flip side of that, of course, is that 2/3 of young people are leaving school and they are saying they haven't had sexual intercourse. And that's an important message, I think, as well. Then looking at the storm and stress, that's displayed on the right-hand side there of the screen. Again, an important one, because this relates to the growing body of research that we have now about the instance of peer-led sexual harassment and the non-consensual sharing of sexual imagery that's quite prevalent amongst young people. So you can find those yourselves, but I'm just mentioning them there because it's really important that we have a strong evidence base and for the decisions we're making and the things we're including in the curriculum. And I'm just using this as an example. When we went out to publicly consult and launched the draft curriculum in the middle of July, you might have noticed a bit of media attention around it. And one of the things that got most media attention was probably one of the learning outcomes that refers to pornography. And people were asking questions like, oh my God, does this mean that teachers are going to be telling young people that it's okay to watch pornography with their boyfriend or their girlfriend? Are they going to be normalizing it now and promoting pornography? God forbid, are they going to even be showing pornography in the classroom? So all this kind of speculation, none of which was true. And in fact, the opposite is the case. It's because when we look at the learning outcome here, it says what students should be able to investigate the influence of digital media, and in particular, the influence of pornography on young people's understanding, expectations, and social norms in relation to sexual expression. So the conversations we're hoping will happen in the classroom then will be about creating awareness amongst young people about the prevalence of sexual imagery that is saturating our culture, and which is everywhere, from the music that young people are listening to the imagery, to even the mainstream movies and so on. All around them, they are saturated with sexual imagery. And by looking at that, and then obviously looking to see how that, what might be called pornification of culture, is potentially affecting them and influencing their emerging understanding. And it is emerging at this stage. They're adolescents, so they're only becoming to understand their own identity, their sexuality, and so on. And it is setting up expectations for them then around relationships and sexual activity. So it's about bringing that kind of critical awareness to young people at this stage when they are at a very formative stage of development. It's helping them to realize as well that pornography is not a good place to go if you're curious or interested in learning about sex. And nor is it reflective of sex in the real world. And it's certainly not compatible with values of human dignity, respect, or gender equality. So you might be saying, well, isn't it not a little bit young, for young people, 12, 13, 14, 15 in junior cycle, to be even having to talk about this? And I think that's a fair point, because I know as a parent myself, we always want to, I suppose, protect our young people and their innocence, our children, as long as possible. But sadly, the answer is no. Young people do need at this stage to be having these conversations, because we know, for example, from the Growing Up in Ireland survey that I just mentioned, the SRI, that 90% of first years have access to the internet and to a smart device. And so pornography is just one click away for them. And we know from research that was conducted by NUI Galway that 53% of boys in Ireland first watched pornography under the age of 13. And it found that 23% of girls had first encountered pornography between the ages of 10 and 13. Now, in many cases, that's accidental and they might stumble on it or be shown it by someone else. But often as well, it's worth saying that there can be a discrepancy between our perception as parents and what children are actually experiencing. And in one report, 3/4 of parents felt that their child would not have seen pornography online. But when those same children were consulted, more than half said that they had in fact seen it. So obviously the dangers around this are being now researched, and there is some evidence base there about the harmful effect of pornography on young children in particular. And this report from the Council of Europe there just is there by illustration, and you can see there's quite cause for concern there. So I think all of this highlights the importance of parents and schools working together. I know as parents, and personally speaking as well, sometimes we feel a bit overwhelmed or unsure how to have conversations about many of the topics that might come up in the SPHE class. And we're certainly not alone in this, and the research bears it out. So that, for example, in the ESRI report, they found that for most teenagers around the age of 13, they are having conversations with parents and family around sexuality and relationships. But by the age of 17, this subsides and it's more and more difficult to have these conversations. And sometimes it's due to our own kids. They're very good at shutting down and letting us know, no, mom, don't go there. I don't want to talk to you about it. So therefore, it's not surprising that by 17, the most commonly cited source of information about sex and relationships is friends, and very closely followed by the internet. Now, the research also is important to look at, what is the impact then when you have schools-based programs and when you have parents together working and talking and having conversations around these important topics. The good news is that the evidence is that school-based programs, especially when supported at home, they delay sexual activity. And you might think, oh, well, talking about it is going to make them more promiscuous. In fact, it's the opposite. They've also been found to decrease the number of sexual partners that young people have when they eventually do become sexually active. They've also been found to reduce risk-taking behaviours and to increase young people's ability to manage risky situations they might find themselves in. And there's evidence that school-based programs, when run in consultation and partnership with parents in particular, lead to increased conversations at home with parents about matters of sexuality and relationships. So good SPHE isn't about usurping the role of parents. It's about working with parents together. And just some websites that might be of use to you, and you might be familiar with some of these. In the NCCA, we've developed a series of toolkits predominantly to support teachers in engaging in SPHE with their students in the classroom. But a lot of the materials that's on those curriculumonline.ie toolkits is equally useful, and in fact a lot of it is targeted at parents too. And then you might be familiar with Bernardo's website, where they have a really good section of resources for parents there on a whole range of issues, and I just pulled out that particular one as an example. And the HSE have fantastic resources as well to support parents in having conversations with their children from a very early age right up to secondary school level around areas of relationships and sexuality on sexualwellbeing.ie. So they're ones you might or might not be familiar with. I just thought it might be useful to flag them with you. So coming most importantly to the updated SPHE curriculum that is now open for consultation. We really would invite you to take a look at it, to go online and I'll show you a link in a moment now to where you can find it. And in particular to look at the learning that's set out from about page 13 to page 16. And that's really setting out the core learning across the 4 strands. So the learning is organised around 4 strands. The first one, understanding myself and others, and that's all around helping young people to develop self-esteem, self-awareness, and building the social emotional skills that they need in order to have healthy and happy relationships. The making healthy choices covers a whole range of areas, from looking at aspects of food, sleep, alcohol, addictive substances and behaviours that young people might be either aware of or in fact are engaged in. And of course, their online world, which is a really important aspect of health now for young people. The relationships and sexuality strand then is focusing on creating and maintaining healthy and respectful relationships, family relationships, friendships, romantic relationships, and potentially intimate relationships at some point in the future. And it's all around looking at responsible decision-making in relationships, and also examining some of the pressures that young people might be under in relation to relationships and becoming sexually active. And then coming to the emotional well-being, that's really about trying to give young people the skills and the knowledge and the strategies to manage the day-to-day ups and downs and stresses of life, helping them to self-regulate their emotions, to know how to take care of themselves emotionally, where to seek help if they need help, and basically how to leave class feeling better able to cope, as I say, with the normal ups and downs of teenage life. So in a nutshell, that's what the course is about. At the heart of it is really young people and their lives, their issues, and particularly trying to build an SPHE curriculum around the kinds of things that young people have told us are important for them at this point in their lives, and that they really feel they need support and help in managing and learning about. There's also really strong focus on building skills, and it's not just about giving young people information, although that is important, and particularly the critical thinking skills and the ability to be able to question cultural norms. And by that, it sometimes means even asking the question, well, is everybody sexually active? And the answer is clearly no. I mentioned 2/3 of young people are not by the time they leave school. Is everybody drinking? Is everybody engaged in whatever the behavior might be? So sometimes there's that questioning of cultural norms is a really important part of SPHE class, and challenging assumptions that young people might have. Developing their social and emotional skills, I mentioned self-awareness, awareness of others too is equally important, and empathy, problem-solving skills, responsible decision-making. So it's not about telling young people, this is what you must do, but it's helping them to come to their own considered decisions and being able to make decisions, and especially in tricky situations sometimes. Health literacy skills relates to helping young people to use technology. Sometimes we're afraid of technology in the hands of our young people, but we need to be able to show them and how to access appropriate and trustworthy information that's relevant to their health and well-being. So that underpins the course as well. We sometimes get asked, is this value free? And it's certainly not, because it's very strongly grounded in values of respect and care, empathy and equality and inclusion, so that all young people in the class feel included in the learning and are visible. And then there's a very strong emphasis as well, obviously, and I think I've said this already, around building and maintaining caring relationships and supporting them and having healthy lives. So the consultation is open now for junior cycle to engage in having a look at what's proposed. And by no means do we think it's the perfect final version. So we're always open to hearing perspectives and hearing, well, maybe have you considered putting in more of this or maybe less of that? And there's a number of tools on the website there. When you go on ncca.ie on the homepage, it brings you, you can click on the SPHE consultation. There's survey tools for teachers, students and parents, guardians, carers. But equally, if that doesn't appeal to you, you can just email us at that address there on the screen and send us in an email or any kind of a written format your views on the proposed updated junior cycle course. Also, if you have a student that age in your home, ask them to fill in the student survey, and I think that would be great. It might be even interesting to have a conversation with the young person that's in your house about their views on it, and see if they think it's meeting their needs. And also, just to mention senior cycle, we're beginning to work on that, and therefore we'll be seeking views of parents and students and teachers in relation to what's needed in an updated senior cycle curriculum. And we're interested in having a consultation now to inform that work. And that will be beginning at the end of the month. So for now, that brings us to the end of the of my piece.